On May 3, 1948, the United States Supreme Court issued its historic decision in Shelley v. Kraemer. The court held that racially restrictive housing covenants cannot be legally enforced. This landmark event in America's civil rights movement had its origins with a family named Shelley, who were trying to buy a home in St. Louis. Missouri Historical Society historians Cicely and Gwen tell us the story.
So at a time when St. Louis had a booming population and essentially people were migrating in, J.D. and Ethel Shelley, their story is one of which is infamous because of its ascension into the Supreme Court. Ethel and J.D. actually moved their children from Mississippi to St. Louis. And like many other families, they wanted to purchase a home. So they were actually shown 4600 Labadie, and they fell in love with the home and eventually put forth an offer. That offer was accepted. The Marcus Improvement Association with Fern as well as Lewis Kraemer pushed back. They became the plaintiffs of that particular case, arguing because of the restrictive covenant that was in place for that home, that therefore Black people could not live in that particular property.
They often talked about Blacks moving into white neighborhoods as an invasion. We've got to stop the Negro invasion. So there was always this fear of Blacks living in close proximity to whites.
What transpires after that is a court case. And so this court case on the circuit court level, they argue that because the restrictive covenant was not actually signed, it wasn't, therefore, it shouldn't be in effect, right? And then there was another court case which reversed that one, and that went to the Supreme Court. And then finally, on May 3rd, 1948, it was determined that the restrictive covenant could not be judicially enforced, even though it was considered to be a private contract, because it was in violation of the 14th Amendment. So it's cases like Shelley v. Kraemer that also set a precedent for civil rights movement and the ways in which Black people were using the court system to advocate for their rights.
Eventually, Congress would take up the battle for housing fairness, and in 1968, passed the Fair Housing Act, which established federal law against housing discrimination, as well as methods of enforcement.
To learn more about the Missouri Historical Society, visit mohistory.org.